ayes have it.
Hello and thanks for joining us on this episode of the program. I am Dennis Adigunloye. Plenary in the week commenced with an executive communication in which President Muhammadu Buhari wrote to the Senate seeking the confirmation of 7 ministerial nominees who are to replace those that step down to pursue their political ambitions. Here are highlights of this and other developments at Tuesday's plenary.
Sequel to the resignation of some cabinet members in May, President Muhammadu Buhari promised to fill in the vacancies on time. Less than 2 months, the president has forwarded names of those he believes are capable of filling these ministerial positions. President of the Senate, Ahmad Lawan, read the executive communication.
Henry Ikechukwu Iko, Abia State. Umana Okon Umana, Akwa Ibom State. 3. Ekuman Kama Joseph Nkama, Ebonyi State. 4. Goodluck Nana Opia, Imo State. 5. Umar Ibrahim Eliakub, Kano State. 6. Ademola Adewole Adegorie, Ondo State. And 7, Odum Udi, River State. Copies of their curriculum vitae are attached herewith. It is my hope that this exercise will receive the usual expeditious consideration of the distinguished members of the Senate.
Senate passed bills establishing federal medical centers in Oshobo, Ijebu-Ode, Gada and Onitsha, while the Police Pension Board establishment bill, sponsored by Senator Elisha Abu Ishaku, passed second reading.
The broad objective of this bill, therefore, Mr. President, is to bring equality, equity, and justice in the payment of pensions between the police and our sister agencies.
Senators Sadiq Umar and Aliu Sabi Abdullahi drew the attention of the Senate to what they described as worsening security situation in Kenji Lake National Park. The People's Democratic Party, PDP, has appointed Minority Chief Whip Senator Philip Aduda as Minority Leader of the Senate. He replaces Senator Enyinnaya Abaribe, who defected to ABGA. Senator Chukwuka Otazi is to take over from Aduda as Minority Chief Whip. 3 senators defected to other political parties: Ahmed Babakaita, Katsina North, from the All Progressives Congress to the People's Democratic Party, PDP; Lawal Yahaya Gumau, Bauchi South, from the APC to NNPP; while Francis Alimihena, Edo North, from the APC to the PDP. With this, Senate is now made up of 66 APC members, PDP 39, NNPP 2, YPP 1, ABGA 1.
And at Wednesday's plenary, steps were taken to make the regulatory framework for public-private partnerships in Nigeria more stringent, as the Senate is considering a bill to that effect. The bill, which has passed second reading, seeks to repeal the Infrastructure Concession Regulatory Commission Act.
This is the second and last plenary of the week with improved attendance. Some senators now sitting in new positions following chains of defection. Report on the Public-Private Partnership Regulatory Commission bill was one of the 3 considered. The proposed law, sponsored by Senator Adamu Alero, is to ensure transparency and efficiency in supervising service of development projects and ensure value for money.
Its passage will strengthen the Commission to further attract private sector participation in our infrastructure development.
This is one piece of legislation that will change the landscape of funding systems of our infrastructure in the country.
The bill that seeks to establish in vitro fertilization authority to regulate and strengthen the practice of reproductive technology, sponsored by Senator Jibrin Barau, and the National Commission on Child Destitution Establishment Bill by Senator Aliu Wamako passed second reading.
These include the appropriate balance between legislation, regulation, and reproductive freedom, stroke liberty.
This technology has brought succor to families, and that is why I support it.
After consultation with state and local government and other relevant stakeholders, we have a master plan for total eradication of child destitution in Nigeria.
Senate is to investigate the oil mining leases granted to Shell Petroleum Development Company from 1959 to 2019, alleged to have shortchanged federal government of $200 million, as moved by Senator George Thompson Sekibo. President of the Senate, Ahmad Lawan, directed the Committee on Judiciary to engage the Chief Justice of Nigeria on how to address the current crisis in the Supreme Court.
So I will urge our Committee on Judiciary, Human Rights and Legal Matters to get involved and find out what the real issues are and how the National Assembly can help.
Party switching continued on the floor of the Senate. Senator Ezenwa Onyewuchi, representing Imo East, bid farewell to PDP as he joined Labour Party, while Senator Haliru Jika of APC, representing Bauchi Central, embraced NNPP as his new political party. APC now has 65 senators, PDP 38, NNPP 3, ABGA 1, YPP 1, and Labour Party 1. Senate is to screen the 7 ministerial nominees next week, Wednesday.
Now, the 9th National Assembly has just clocked 3 years, and in that time, no doubt, there have been some major milestone achievements. Here are some legislators to give their takes on various standout moments in the life of the 9th Senate.
Well, I think possibly the single greatest achievement of the 9th Senate, which a lot of people overlook, is the fact that for the first time, probably since the advent of this democratic dispensation, we've managed to establish, a workable and realistic budget calendar. That is to say, for the very first time, you have a budget that is presented before the National Assembly well before the end of the year. It's worked on. And on the 1st of January, you have a working budget. We've had instances before where the previous year's budget was operated till August or September because the National Assembly, in conjunction, of course, with the executive, did not tidy up the process of presenting the budget, working on it, and passing it into law. The appropriation bill is the single most important act that any National Assembly will pass. Without it, nothing can go on. And there's a ripple effect on other aspects of governance that most people don't realize. You look at the Fiscal Responsibility Act and the fact that there are certain things that are supposed to be reported from time to time from the Accountant General, from the Ministry of Finance, on a quarterly basis. You have a budget, it's being implemented, you monitor releases. If in January by March, there should be a report of the releases done for that first quarter from the Ministry of Finance and the Accountant General, so that Nigerians will know not just that the fact that X amount is budgeted, but whether it has been released. If it hasn't been released, what are the reasons? But if you have a situation where the budget has not been signed into law middle of the year, then of course, what are you asking the Accountant General to report on? So I think really sanitizing that aspect of our fiscal responsibility is a huge achievement by the Ninth Senate. Secondly, some landmark legislation that have been in the mill for some time, like the Petroleum Industry Bill, which a lot of people have even given up on. Most industry operators simply gave up because it's been in the rounds for 15 years without any progress. Despite the seeming challenges and the daunting hurdles that are placed before it, opposition by Nigerians, we created that balance and tried to meet the demands of the industry while still protecting the interest of Nigerian citizens. And by and large, we passed the PIB into law. The constitutional review process, which has also been bogged down in previous national assemblies, was kick-started and brought to a logical conclusion, at least as far as the National Assembly is concerned. Now it's left for us to pass it down to the state assemblies to see what sections out of the ones we agreed and harmonized with the House of Representatives, we can get the 2/3 or 4/5 resolution and pass into law. And if you look at the amendments, they are far-reaching. Very, very, very far-reaching, that pass through issues of state police, autonomy for local governments, independent candidature by candidates. We seemingly try to address the issues of internal democracy within the parties in a constitutional way. You can pass the Electoral Act and amend it 20 times, but as long as there are certain things you want to do that clash with the Constitution, there's no point. So even within those 2-3 issues, I think the Ninth Assembly has done well. They haven't had issues of rancor with the executive. Whatever has been presented in line of our constitutional duty has been treated dispassionately and handed back to the executive.
All right, going into the final year, I know we've just had the primaries and it's looking like many of the legislators are not coming back for the 10th Assembly. In terms of motivation going into this final year, what are your thoughts?
Well, it's a shame because a lot of people don't understand the dynamics of continuity in the National Assembly. It's a learning curve. I'm in the Senate for the first time. It'll probably take you a year and a half to really understand the workings. And you see that even in the process of legislative participation. A lot of the new senators take their time to really get into the act. But you find that some of the ranking senators seemingly get their bills passed with ease, get their motions listed on the agenda. And this is all as a result of seniority. Even the sitting arrangement in the Senate, we find that the ranking senators are right next to the Senate President, while the newcomers are way behind. So you might be waving your hand to chip in your contribution. The Senate President might see 5, 6 senators before you do. And if you look at the United States, where we borrow this system from, ranking is sacrosanct. Senators are there for 40 years, 42 years, and a ranking senator has his pick of what committees he chairs and what committees he participates in, and his voice is heard way above somebody who has only spent 2 or 3 times in the Senate. So you find that because the electorate is aware of what a ranking senator can do for them, they keep on bringing them back. Unforgiving as the United States is, if you have a ranking senator that is enmeshed in scandal, sexual, financial, whatever, the electorate forgive him because they know that if they dismiss him because of that and they bring somebody new, the man has taken them back 30, 40 years. But we don't seem to appreciate that here. And you find that the turnover is extremely high. 100 and something House of Reps members are not coming back. In the Senate, probably up to half. It's a shame, and I'd say maybe it was the outcome of fallout of the primary election that we saw.
To fast track the passage of the PIB law. That too succeeded. You know how long the PIB law stayed in the National Assembly. So to be passed, I think should be counted as a major achievement. Issue of security, which is a nagging issue in our polity. You know, we have shown concern as a Senate, I must say, because hardly will you have any week or any sitting day without the issue of insecurity coming up by way of a motion, with resolutions passed. At a point, we even asked that the service chief be replaced to see whether we could inject new blood into the system, and that was done. But it's like the more you see, the less you understand. Well, maybe the idea they have not come with the requisite ideas that we thought new people would come with, and so the insecurity has not abated, so to say. So, but that is not because the Senate does not care. We have done a security summit, was a roundtable was held, and to garner ideas to see what exactly could be done about it. But you know the limitations of a legislature when it comes to such matters. You can generate ideas and pass over. The implementation is not in your court, so to say. So, but I just want to emphasize that it's on the mind of the Senate every day, because there's no part of the country that is not touched by this insecurity. So nobody can claim, can be aloof as far as the issue of insecurity is concerned. So everybody cares, because if you don't care today, tomorrow it happens in your district. It's no longer northeast with their Boko Haram issue that used to be the case. Some people were looking like, oh, it doesn't bother us. Now every part of the country is covered. Federal, what do they call it? Federal character, as it were, has been complied with when it comes to this matter of security. So, and the roundtable was also held in the issue of power, because it's one of the items on the legislative agenda too, to see the best way that we could overcome that. The fact that we're having big power outage now, big power problem now, is a testimony to the failure, so to say, of our efforts so far. Because if they succeeded, it means we won't be having the difficulties in the power sector that we're having. But that is not for lack of trying. As far as I know, there are still efforts. Even the president is promising that to doing something differently to ensure that we have a decent amount of power. So, like I said, several other things that we promised ourselves that are still not been done. But in terms of legislation, we've been covering the field in those critical areas. A lot of important legislation has been done in the agricultural sector, in the relevant areas that we set up for ourselves.
All right, so you've made that point. In terms of the last week or this week, we saw a few defections yet again on the floor of the Senate. What would you attribute these shifts to in particular?
Well, like I always say, I saw it coming. I saw it coming because we are yet to have internet democracy in our body system of democracy. And as far and as long as you don't have internet democracy, people will seek for platforms that will help them realize their ambition. Like I always say, if I know that the electorate prefer me, and one person or a group of persons sit there and try to prevent me from accessing the electorate, I will look for a way. I'll look for the platform that will allow me. And in some cases, in most cases, people leave, defect, and go to new platforms and get elected, which is a testament to the fact that they were unjustly treated, as they claim in most cases. Okay. So, because sometimes the godfather will not just like your face, or sometimes an exiting governor will want to replace you, and you believe that you'll be preferred by the electorate. If you go to another platform and face such person, you are likely to win if indeed you were truly preferred by them. So with the party system that we have here, people don't join parties on the basis of ideology, because our parties have no ideological content.
Well, I wouldn't like to talk about the 9th Senate particularly, but what I would like to say about the National Assembly in particular in this country is that it is very, very important that we understand that the legislature is a symbol of our democracy. And as far as I'm concerned, part of the reason why our democracy remains substantially a challenge in so many respects is because of the rules of the National Assembly, particularly the whole idea of voice votes on legislation and voice vote on major motions and issues. I think that it is important at this stage of our democracy that anything that is not procedural, every single legislator should be able to put his name to his vote, so that the public and the voters in particular are able to understand where individual legislators, senators and all that stand on particular issues. You know, as far as we're not able to do that, and we continue to use generic voting, and you have the presiding officers calling the shots, the real benefits of our democracy will be lost to the majority of the people. And I think that is the next challenge that will face the people of this country. How do we get the National Assembly to be an institution where the character, and quality of each individual can stand up and stand out by itself? That's not a problem for the 9th Senate in particular. That's a problem for the Nigerian legislature. But I think that particular issue has to be addressed before we can move forward.
All right, let's talk about the character of the individual legislature. Over the last week or so, we've seen quite a few defections, APC to PDP, PDP to ANPP and such. What, in your view, is responsible for so much? I mean, we talked last time about a lack of party ideology within the parties across the board. Why are we seeing so much movement at this point in time?
Well, first of all, you have to understand that all politics ultimately is local, and that it is important for the public to understand that people do things based on what their own interest is. When a political party is unable to aggregate the interest of people, is unable to create inclusion and space for divergent views, and is unable to manage internal competition within its own ranks, that political party essentially becomes captive in the hands of those who hold the powers over the flag and the building. I think what is happening now in this country is that with the new Electoral Act, the politicians and even the voters themselves are beginning to realize that the party is not the flag and the building and the office of the chairman. The party is actually the people. So if some of these political parties are not careful, they will have the building and have the offices and don't have the people. And at that point, it will be impossible for them to realize anything. I think that the 2023 election in many ways will reshape the internal politics of a lot of our political parties. You saw what just happened in the Ekiti election, where an unknown political quantity suddenly populated by the people became a major contender. And but for the obvious advantages of office and all that, there could have been a major upset in Ekiti. So I think that moving forward, any political party that is watching the trend as it unfolds, not just in the National Assembly. It's not only when senators and governors and members of the House of Reps move that things are moving. Sometimes too, you move in response to what your own people are saying. Because if your people are saying that no, this situation is unacceptable to them, they're not going to accept it, and then you accept it, you're on your own. So it is the people that will ultimately decide where power will swing to. And I think that what we're seeing now is a trend of when the people are shortchanged, they can react.
Well, that concludes this episode of the program. Thanks for watching. I am Dennis Adigunloye. See you next week.